Infighting among Democrats continues to dominate the news cycle. President Biden's record low poll numbers, combined with finger pointing galore between progressives and moderates over inflation. As you can see, President Biden right now is at 35% approval, 55% disapprove. There's a lot of snappy TV sound bites, not to mention Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, famous for wearing her tax-the-rich dress, was caught flying first class this week. Should be a field day for Republicans, but pop some popcorn because there is a fight to the death coming on the Republican side amongst each other. And this is the one to watch. The generic ballot, a poll question asking in the midterms, will you vote for a Republican or a Democrat, currently has Republicans plus 3.8%. The last time we saw numbers like that was in 2010 when Republicans picked up 63 seats. Still, though, Republicans are desperately trying to rescue defeat from the jaws of certain majorities this November in both the House and the Senate. Here are just some of the inter-party battles playing out. The Mitch McConnell-Donald Trump fight, in which Mr. Trump said the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is a disaster. The Republicans need to get a new leader. The House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy endorsed a primary challenger against incumbent Republican Liz Cheney of Wyoming. Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina faces a primary challenge for a Trump-backed candidate, and Mace filmed a selfie video in front of Trump Tower. It gets more bizarre from there. The Missouri Senate primary race, the disgraced former governor Eric Greitens might win. Republicans have privately shared polling showing his sex scandal past would put Democrats in striking distance for the general election in a state Mr. Trump won by 15 points. I could literally go on and on for the whole show, but those are the big ones to start our discussion with Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, NewsNation senior contributor George Will. Mr. Will, good to see you on a Monday, sir. Is this all about Donald Trump?
It's all about Donald Trump, and what makes it worse is it's all about the past. Elections are about the future, and the Republicans are in danger of going to the country in 2022 saying, let's relitigate 2020. And I'm not sure people want to vote on that.
Well, it certainly didn't work for Republicans in the Georgia Senate races, which happened after the November 2020 election. Still, though, CBS YouGov poll of Republicans this month, 69% want Trump to run for president in 2024, 31% say no. The only thing he wants to talk about is 2020. How is that not an endorsement of Republicans saying we want to relitigate 2020?
Well, Mr. Trump is out of office, and when you're out of office but still want to wield power, you have to obey two rules. First, use it or lose it. And the only way he can use such power as he has, which is the power he thinks to select Republican candidates, is by picking Republicans who will run primaries against incumbent Republicans he doesn't like. Trouble is, what if he picks the wrong people? Because you only have power if people think you have power when you're in Mr. Trump's position. In Georgia, for example, he detests Governor Kemp, who he thinks did not do enough to overturn the Georgia election. So he talked former Senator Perdue into running against Kemp. But Kemp right now, according to polls, is doing very well indeed. The same is true in North Carolina in the Senate race. A Trump-endorsed candidate is lagging. The same is true in Alaska. He has an extreme dislike of Lisa Murkowski, the senator, who's the only one of the 7 senators who voted to impeach Donald Trump, who's up for election this year, but she seems to be doing very nicely indeed. And you mentioned a moment ago his attack on McConnell, urging the Republican senators to overturn McConnell. He might as well have thrown a rose petal into the Grand Canyon. It made no impact whatever.
I'm visualizing a rose petal falling into the Grand Canyon, yet still there is a lot of Republicans, even ones conceivably who had been held out before as the moral majority, if you will, who are kissing the ring. There is still, though, so many Republicans, even after the issues you point out, who are really scared of them.
Oh, fear is exactly what's at issue here, and what makes the Republican position so fascinating and so hard to look at, frankly, is that you have a political party that is terrified of a large portion of its own voters. That's hard to go through life that way. It's hard to look dignified that way going into an election. Let me suggest 2 states to watch. Watch the state of Missouri, where you just mentioned. Will he
my home state, by the way.
Exactly, whether he'll intervene against Greitens by picking a candidate. And watch particularly Ohio. The lead, and it's not a large lead, is enjoyed by Josh Mandel, who has suddenly had, as someone said, a personality transplant and become an ardent Trump supporter. But then J.D. Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, who said some very caustic things about Mr. Trump in 2020 and in 2016, now has become Trump through and through. Let's see if Mr. Trump risks the power he has by picking someone in an uncertain race, either in Missouri or in Ohio.
Now, you make a very good point that he, at least privately, seems to be telling people at Mar-a-Lago that he's meeting with that he's terrified of picking a loser because then his power goes down. I have a good friend who says that Democrats, when one of their presidents is impeached, they get in buses together and go up Pennsylvania Avenue from Capitol Hill to the White House, a la Bill Clinton impeachment. On the other hand, when Republican presidents get impeached, a la Richard Nixon, Republicans tell the guy to leave, which is what happened with Richard Nixon before he was impeached. Republicans are always fighting. Democrats stick together no matter what. Is that a true and fair statement?
Well, I don't think it's quite fair because in Watergate, and of course we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the burglary this year, in Watergate the Republicans stuck remarkably to Mr. Nixon until the evidence became overwhelming. The evidence came from the tapes, at which point Barry Goldwater, the Republican nominee for president in '64, for whom I'm proud to say I cast my first vote, led a delegation down to the White House and said, Mr. President, we've seen the evidence. You're no longer defensible. Goodbye. That was a party behaving responsibly, not like a unified team walking off the cliff out of blind loyalty, but people making independent judgments and breaking with a leader who had lost his legitimacy.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, perhaps you set up the idea that there's a party that would walk off the cliff, so to speak, to follow the blind loyalty. We shall see. Good to see you. We'll be in Washington next week with State of the Union with you. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.